I'm Karl Wells. Many of you will know me, of course, from having done the weather on CBC television for almost 30 years. More recently, I've been involved with food, writing about it, and of course, reviewing restaurants and co-hosting One Chef, One Critic. I was born in Buckens, central Newfoundland. I didn't live there very long. We lived in Buckens because my dad got a job there running a hotel, the Buckens Hotel, which was owned by the mining company in Buckens. A lot of people won't remember the hotel, but there was in fact a hotel in Buckens. And my brother and sister kind of grew up there, at least while we were there. It was the early part of their lives. We were there for about 10 years. I should say that my brother and sister are quite a bit older than me. Well, about 9 years. And I kind of was an unplanned kid. My parents had my brother and they had my sister. They had the boy, they had the girl. And then I came along so many years later, and I think I was a complete shock to my parents. And when I was about a year old, my dad developed rheumatic fever, and he became quite ill, and we had to move away. We moved to St. John's because he needed treatment and needed to see doctors and so forth. But when he got better, when we moved back to St. John's, he went into business for himself and went into the grocery business. And eventually, when Dad's business started getting a bit bad, we had to sell our house. We had a house. We lived on O'Neill Avenue. He had to sell the house. We moved into an apartment over the store, which is really where I grew up. So my life was, spending a lot of time with my dad, who I adored. Adored my mom too, but I spent a lot of time with Dad, going off to the wholesalers and going off delivering groceries and being with him when he would, meet with his buddies from days gone by. I remember going down to the waterfront. One of his friends was a captain of a schooner, and we would deliver supplies, food, to this schooner when they'd be going off on one of their trips. So Dad worked on boats as well. His dad was a fisherman and they had their own schooner. So I had a great time with my father. He was a very kind man, very generous, very gregarious, loved meeting people, loved to talk. That was a family trait. I enjoyed being with my father and working with him in our store. But I realized that this was really hard work. My dad had his own business, and he worked literally from 7 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock at night, day in, day out. It was a real slog. He enjoyed his work, but I looked at the way he worked and how hard he worked, and I thought, my God, am I going to have to? Is this what I've got to look forward to when I become an adult? I knew from a very early age that I wanted to be either in broadcasting, radio or television, or possibly acting. And in fact, I did do some acting when I was younger. And when I was in my teenage years, I started acting on radio with CBC. Got my first gig in a play. It was a school broadcast, and it was a series they were doing on Alice in Wonderland, based on Alice in Wonderland. And I played a unicorn. And that was my first acting gig on CBC Radio. I played a unicorn in Through the Looking Glass, it was called. And I did dozens of those, dozens and dozens of radio plays, working with people like Michael Cook, Dennis Ferry, Eugene Young, The most pressure I ever felt doing a radio play was when I did one with Mary Walsh. And there were only, I think there were like 3 of us in the play. And Mary played, or I played Mary's boyfriend. And there was a scene where we had to neck. And I thought, my God, how do you do this, you know? So I think I probably spoke to somebody about it or asked, how do you do that on the radio? How do you portray that on the radio? I mean, in a movie or on television, obviously you do it, but on the radio, I didn't really think it was appropriate to be necking with Mary Walsh. So, but what you do on radio is, if you want to, you know, sound like you're kissing, you kiss your hand. So you do things like that. But anyway, Mary doesn't remember it, but thank God she probably, you know. But that was an interesting experience. Once I got bitten by the acting bug, I thought, well, maybe I should go to acting school. Maybe I should go to theater school and really see if I can do this. And I looked into it, and the school that I picked out was in England, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. And I actually, in 1974, I was in England, and I went to the school and visited the school and saw it and checked it out and everything, and I decided, yes, this is where I want to go. But at that time, I was very young. I graduated high school when I was 16. And I decided that it would probably be best if I got a couple of years or a year or 2 of university under my belt. So I went to university. And it was when I was at university that I really got involved with TV and radio, because they had an educational television center at MUN. And I got hired to work there. And what else was I doing? Oh, I started volunteering at VOWR, the Wesley Church radio station. We were actually members of Wesley Church. That was my family's church. And I started down there when I was pretty young. I guess that was probably about 16 when I started working there. And that was actually the first time I was ever on the radio. And it was the first time I'd ever hosted anything on the radio. And I actually, my claim to fame is that I'm the first person to have done country music on VOWR. I was the person that introduced country music on VOWR. After VOWR, I auditioned for CBC as a relief announcer. And I was lucky enough to get a job one summer. I must say I've had a lot of good breaks in my life, because I got a job at ETV, and I worked there through the school year. But then in the summertime, which I would take off, or I wasn't studying, they would give me a job, a summer job. So I had a summer job lined up at ETV, at MUN, plus I had a job at CBC. So I took the job at CBC, and that's when I started to, you know, really learn how to be an announcer and host. And I did a lot of newscasts and filled in on different radio shows, that sort of thing. And I did that, I would do that then in the summer times. I was enjoying myself so much at university, not the academic part of university, but all of these things I was involved with, the radio, the television, and everything else, that I wasn't in any hurry to leave. And I had decided that, you know, I wasn't going to pursue acting professionally, that I was going to pursue broadcasting professionally. But I knew that I needed the degree. Well, I wanted the degree for Mom and Dad. I wanted them to see me walk across that stage. And just in case the CBC thing didn't work out, I thought, well, I better, you know, maybe I should do something that I can use. I was doing general arts with a major in English. So then I decided to switch to education, so I did the conjoint degree program. where you get a degree, a Bachelor of Arts degree in English and a Bachelor of Education degree in English. English was my major. And while I was doing the education degree, I actually got to teach, and I did student teaching at McPherson Junior High. I was there for about a year, and that was interesting. But then after university, I went back to CBC for the summer. And this is a case of somebody literally being in the right place at the right time. When I was there that summer, in 1976, I guess it was, Charlie Vitch, who was an announcer, he was the host of the morning show, he left the announcing staff and became a producer for a year. And Des Brown, who was the executive producer in radio back in those days, Des Brown called me in one day and he said, Charlie is going to be he's going to become a producer for a year. Would you like to become an announcer for a year? And I said, yes. Because I was finishing university and I was looking for work, and so I got that job for a year. And of course, what happened was Charlie never did go back to the announcing staff, and I continued on in his job and remained there for, well, 30 years, I guess. Unfortunately, early on in my CBC career, my dad was killed. My dad and my mom were vacationing in Florida, and they went down in the spring. They drove down. Dad would never fly. He had a phobia about flying. On the way back, they collided with a transport truck in Fort Myers, and Dad was killed instantly. And I was at CBC just finishing my shift, I think. It was late in the afternoon. And they had been trying to call me from Florida all day and couldn't get me. And eventually I got back to my apartment, and a friend called and said, you need to go to your brother's. He needs to see you. So I got to my brother's apartment, and he was a wreck. I walked in, and I'd never seen my brother cry before. And he was just crying uncontrollably. It was very, very hard. There was a lot that I wanted to say to my dad that I didn't get to say. There was a lot I wanted to talk to him about. And I just wanted to really thank him for everything that he had done for me, because my parents were a great support to me. They never tried to push me in one direction or another. They kind of let me find my own way. I think my dad actually was quite delighted when he realized that I actually, from an early age, had set my mind on being in broadcasting. I think that was a bit of a relief to him. But he never got to see me. You know, because he died, I mean, just when I got my job at CBC, he got to see me when I was doing the summer relief work, reading the news on TV and that sort of thing, and he was very proud. Never got to see me do the weather. My mom did, of course, and she was my biggest fan, and she loved to tell people that she was my mother. And anytime she'd get a cab ride, she'd say, you know, I'm the weatherman's mother. Or she was meeting somebody, she'd always say, or it was funny, actually. And anytime I was out with her, she'd have to say, I'm his mother. Gordon Pinson had done a scene, and he came off stage, he was into the wings, and he looked at me, and he said, how was I? Was I okay? Was I good? And I said, yeah, yeah, you were good. I thought, this is a bit odd. Gordon Pinson's this big star, and he's asking me if he was any good, you know? So I guess all of us have our insecurities, you know?